All right, let's dive in. Today we're taking a deep dive into No Rules rules.
By Reed Hastings.
Yeah,
Netflix and the Culture of Reinvention.
I think most people have heard about this book and have a pretty surface level understanding of, what the Netflix culture is like.
Yeah.
They don't track vacation days. They
Right.
trust their employees to spend company money.
Yeah.
And there's this idea that, they hire only A players. And
Yeah.
if you're not performing at that level, they just show you the door. But
Right.
we're going to go a little bit deeper than
Much
that.
deeper.
So to start things off, one of the most interesting concepts that I got out of this book was this idea of the keeper test.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that Hastings describes it, imagine, you're a manager and one of your employees came to you and said, hey, I'm thinking of leaving for another opportunity. Would you fight to keep that employee?
That's a really good way to put it, yeah.
And so that's basically it. If the answer is no, then they shouldn't be at the company.
That's the keeper test, yeah.
And it just creates this culture of super high performers.
It's about having a team of what Hastings calls stunning colleagues.
Yeah.
People who are so good at what they do
Yeah.
and who are constantly learning and growing
Right.
that you would fight tooth and nail to keep them on your team.
And it makes so much sense, right? Because if someone's just kind of skating by,
Yeah, right.
meeting the bare minimum,
Then why are they there? Yeah.
they're not really contributing to that,
No,
that level of excellence.
Yeah, and they're probably not very happy either.
Right.
I mean, if you're not challenged and growing,
Exactly.
then you're probably not going to be very engaged at work.
Yeah, and this actually reminded me of a story in the book about, how they trust their employees to make decisions and spend company money.
Oh, yeah.
There was a story about an employee who submitted an expense report for a team dinner, but it was an inappropriately low amount.
Like he took them to, McDonald's or something.
It was something like that. And so, at a normal company, he might have gotten reprimanded for, not taking his team out to a nice enough dinner.
Right.
But at Netflix, the HR director actually pulled him aside and said something like,
Hey, next time, take them somewhere nice.
yeah, go spend some money. And it just shows that,
They trust their people.
yeah, they trust their people to make good decisions, right?
Absolutely.
They're not going to abuse the system because they know that,
The context is there.
yeah.
They've been given the information they need to make responsible choices.
Yeah. And, they also really encourage their employees to ask their manager this question. If I were thinking of leaving, how hard would you work to change my mind?
Oh, that's a good one.
Right. Can you imagine asking your boss that?
I mean, it takes a lot of guts, but it's such a powerful question
Right.
because it forces both of you to really assess the situation. What is this person bringing to the table? Are they living up to their potential?
Yeah.
Are they truly valuable to the team?
Yeah.
And I think that level of honesty and transparency is really, really important.
And it's not just about the keeper test,
Right.
Another really key element of the Netflix culture is this idea of radical honesty and candor.
Yes.
And they're not talking about just being brutally honest.
No, it's not about being mean.
Yeah.
It's about creating a safe environment for open and direct feedback.
Yeah, and helpful.
And helpful feedback, exactly.
Yeah, and Hastings actually, in the book, he tells a story about how he was giving this keynote address about cultural differences.
I remember this one.
And, he was talking about how important it is to be mindful of these differences.
Yeah.
And during the Q&A, someone stood up and very politely but directly pointed out that he had just demonstrated a very American-centric approach by calling on the first person who raised their hand, which, in many cultures, that's not how it's done.
Yeah, that can be seen as very disrespectful.
Yeah, and Hastings said he was initially taken aback by the feedback.
Yeah.
But then he realized that this person was absolutely right.
Right.
And that he had just unconsciously demonstrated the very bias that he was talking about trying to avoid.
Wow, that's a great example of how feedback can be a gift.
Even when it's not what you want to hear.
Even when it stings a little bit.
Yeah, and it shows that everyone, even the CEO,
Right.
can benefit from honest feedback.
Absolutely.
And to kind of make this even more a part of their culture,
Yeah.
they have these things called Live 360 dinners.
Live 360 dinners.
Have you ever heard of this?
I have not.
So they, gather as a team for dinner.
Okay.
And then they just, go around the table and give each other open and honest feedback.
Wow.
In real time.
In real time. So no small talk.
No small talk, just straight feedback.
That sounds intense.
Yeah, I think it probably is. Yeah.
But the idea is that it creates this space for real connection and growth.
I can see how that would be valuable, but it definitely takes a certain kind of culture to pull that off.
Yeah, definitely. But it shows how much they value feedback
Yeah,
and how much they believe that it's essential for growth,
absolutely.
both individually and as a company.
It's interesting because they have this radical honesty and candor, this keeper test, but then they also have this really hands-off approach to management.
Yeah, like the whole no vacation tracking, no expense approvals, just act in Netflix's best interest. Like, it's almost like they're two completely opposite things, right?
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive, doesn't it?
Right.
Like, how can you have so much freedom and so much accountability at the same time?
Yeah, I'm curious to hear your take on that.
Well, I think it goes back to that idea of talent density we talked about earlier.
Okay.
If you hire truly exceptional people, people who are motivated and who share the company's values, then you can trust them to make good decisions, even without a ton of rules and oversight.
Yeah, and in the book, Hastings actually talks about how most companies have like pages and pages of policies and procedures.
Everything.
For everything, yeah. But Netflix is like, nah, we don't need all that.
We trust our people.
We trust our people.
We hire adults.
We hire adults.
We expect them to act like adults.
Exactly.
It's a pretty radical concept, right?
Yeah, it is.
And it's not without its risks, of course.
Right.
But they seem to have figured out a way to make it work.
Yeah, and there's this really great story in the book about a junior engineer who discovered a critical bug on a Friday afternoon. And instead of waiting until Monday to get permission to fix it, he just went ahead and fixed it over the weekend on his own time.
Just took initiative. And at most companies, that would be a huge no-no.
Yeah, you'd probably get in trouble for that.
Right.
Like, who do you think you are? Going rogue and fixing things without permission.
You should have followed the proper channels.
Exactly.
But at Netflix, he was actually celebrated for it.
They were like, thank you.
Yeah.
You saved the day.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it just shows that
they really trust their people.
Yeah, they trust their people to make the right decisions and to take ownership of their work.
And that kind of trust can be incredibly motivating, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
When you feel like your company believes in you and trusts you to do the right thing, you're more likely to go above and beyond.
Yeah, you're more likely to be engaged and to really care about the work that you're doing.
And that can lead to some pretty amazing results.
Yeah, so we've talked about the Keeple test, this radical honesty and this like no rules, trust your employees approach. But it's not all about throwing out the rule book.
Right.
They also really emphasize the importance of context.
Yes, context over control.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
They give their employees the freedom to make decisions, but they also make sure that those employees have the information and the strategic direction that they need
a big picture
to make those decisions.
Yeah, they're not just throwing people into the deep end and saying sink or swim.
Exactly. They're giving them the tools and the knowledge that they need to succeed.
Right.
And it's especially important as they expand globally because different cultures have different norms and expectations.
Right.
And there's this really interesting anecdote in the book.
Oh, tell me about it.
About a Brazilian employee who had a bit of a culture shock when she was interviewing in Silicon Valley. She was surprised and a little bit put off by the lack of personal connection during her lunch break.
Like people weren't chatting and getting to know each other?
Yeah, people were just like eating their lunch and working.
Yeah, that's pretty typical in Silicon Valley, unfortunately.
Right, but in Brazilian culture, it's very important to build relationships and connect with people. On a personal level.
So she probably felt like she was being ignored or something.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and it just highlights how important it is to be mindful of those cultural differences.
Absolutely.
And to adapt your approach accordingly.
Yeah, one size does not fit all.
Especially when you're a global company.
Right, exactly.
Maybe, like Netflix.
Yeah, and it's not just about, being polite or avoiding faux pas.
Right.
It's about creating an environment where everyone feels respected and valued.
Yeah.
And where they can bring their whole selves to work.
Exactly.
And that's something that Netflix seems to take very seriously.
Yeah, and they've actually adopted this framework
called the culture map. To help them navigate these cultural differences.
Okay, so the culture map.
It's this really cool framework that helps you understand how different cultures approach things like communication, feedback, decision-making, all that kind of stuff.
So they're actually using this.
Yeah, they're actively using it.
In their global expansion.
Yeah, they're not just saying, hey, we're a global company now, so everyone needs to adapt to our way of doing things.
Right.
They're actually trying to understand and respect the cultural differences.
Yeah, it's like that whole context, not control thing. They're providing context for how different cultures operate.
And then they're empowering their employees to make decisions based on that context.
They're appropriate for that specific culture.
Right. And it's not just about, avoiding awkward situations.
Right.
It's about creating a truly inclusive and diverse workplace.
Yeah, where everyone feels like they belong and where they can contribute their unique perspectives and talents.
And that's what ultimately leads to innovation.
Yeah, because when you have people from different backgrounds with different experiences coming together and sharing their ideas,
you get some really amazing results.
Yeah, that's where the magic happens.
So we've talked about freedom a lot.
A lot of freedom.
But what about responsibility?
Right, because it seems like they give their employees so much freedom that it would be easy to abuse the system.
Right. I mean, how do they make sure that people aren't just taking advantage of this no rules thing?
Yeah, what are the checks and balances?
Well, first of all, it goes back to that idea of talent density.
Okay.
They hire exceptional people, people who are smart, motivated, and who share the company's values.
Okay.
And they trust those people to make responsible decisions.
Okay, so they're kind of self-governing?
In a way, yeah.
So they've internalized those values?
Right. They understand the company's mission.
Yeah.
And they're committed to achieving it.
Even without a bunch of rules telling them what to do.
Exactly. And they also have a very transparent culture.
Okay.
Where information is freely shared.
Yeah.
So, for example, they have this policy called Open the Books.
Open the books.
Where they literally share detailed financial information with all of their employees.
Like anyone can see the company's financials?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's crazy.
Most companies guard their financial data like it's the Holy Grail.
Right.
But Netflix believes that transparency is key.
To building trust.
Yeah.
And empowering their employees.
Exactly. When employees understand the bigger picture, they're more likely to make decisions that are in the best interest of the company.
It kind of ties back to that keeper test too, right?
Oh, totally.
Because if you know the company's not doing well and you're not performing at a high level,
you're probably not going to be a keeper.
Right, exactly.
Right. And another thing they do really well is they embrace failure.
They do?
Oh, yeah.
How so?
They have this philosophy of sunshining failure.
Sunshining failures.
Which basically means talking about them openly.
Okay.
And honestly. So that everyone can learn from them.
So they're not afraid to admit when they make mistakes.
Nope. In fact, they encourage it.
That's so different from most companies.
I know, right?
Where failure is seen as like this terrible thing.
A sign of weakness.
Yeah, like you're going to get fired if you mess up.
Right.
But at Netflix, they see it as a learning opportunity.
Exactly. And they believe that if you're not failing, you're not taking enough risks.
Right. You're not pushing yourself hard enough.
And taking risks is essential for innovation.
Yeah.
And there's this great story in the book about how they were initially against the idea of downloading content.
Really?
Yeah. Back when Netflix first launched streaming, you had to be connected to the internet to watch anything.
Okay.
And a junior researcher presented this really compelling case for why downloading was crucial. Especially for international markets.
Right, where internet access might not be as reliable.
Exactly. And they ran tests, gathered data, and ultimately convinced the leadership team to change their minds.
So a junior researcher basically changed the way that we consume content.
Pretty much.
That's amazing.
And it's a testament to their culture.
Yeah, where even junior employees can have a huge impact.
If they have a good idea.
If they have a good idea.
And they're willing to fight for it.
So this no rules approach, it sounds great in theory, but can it work outside of Netflix?
That's a great question.
Like, can other companies in different industries with different structures and cultures adopt this model?
It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
It requires a specific set of conditions.
Okay, like what?
Well, first of all, you need to have a high level of talent density.
Yeah.
You need to have a critical mass of exceptional people.
Because if you don't trust your employees, then this whole thing falls apart.
Right.
Right.
And you also need a culture of radical honesty and candor.
Where people feel comfortable
Yeah.
giving and receiving feedback.
And where failure is seen as a learning opportunity,
Yeah.
not a career-ending event.
Right. And you need leadership that's comfortable with empowering employees.
Giving them the freedom to make decisions.
To make mistakes.
Yeah, and to take ownership.
So it's not as simple as just saying, hey, we're a no-rules company now.
Nope. It takes a lot of work and a lot of trust.
Right. And a deep understanding of your company's culture and values.
It's about creating an environment where people feel empowered to do their best work.
Yeah. It's been fascinating diving into this book with you.
I know. It's really made me think.
Yeah, it's really challenged my assumptions about how companies should be run.
It's definitely a different way of thinking.
Yeah, and I'm curious.
Yeah.
What do you think are the broader implications?
Oh, that's a big question.
Of this no-rules approach?
Like, is this the future of work?
Yeah, like as technology continues to evolve and the world of work becomes even more complex and unpredictable.
Could this be the key to unlocking human potential?
And achieving extraordinary results?
I mean, it's definitely something to think about.
It's a really thought-provoking question.
Yeah, and maybe maybe a little no-rules thinking is exactly what we need to navigate the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead.
All right, well, let's bring it back to the present for a second and talk about how these principles can apply to our own lives and careers.
Even if we don't work at Netflix.
Right, because I think there's some really valuable takeaways here.
Absolutely. Even if your company doesn't have a formal keeper test.
Yeah.
It's still a really valuable mindset to adopt.
Yeah, like just asking yourself, would my boss fight to keep me?
Yeah.
Am I bringing enough value to the table?
Am I indispensable?
Right.
And if the answer is no, then maybe it's time to step up your game.
Yeah, or maybe it's time to find a different opportunity.
Right, where you can really shine.
Where you're more appreciated.
Exactly.
And it's not just about waiting for your boss to tell you how to improve.
Yeah, be proactive.
Yeah.
Leak out feedback.
Yeah, ask for it.
Don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, and when you get that feedback, be open to it.
Be open to it, even if it's not what you want to hear.
Even if it's hard to hear.
Yeah, because sometimes the best feedback is the feedback that challenges you.
Right? That pushes you outside of your comfort zone.
Because that's how you grow.
Yeah. And remember those 4 A's of feedback.
Oh, yeah. Those are good ones.
Aim to assist.
Actionable.
Appreciate.
And accept or decline.
So whether you work at Netflix or, you know, a completely different kind of company, these principles
can apply.
They really help you thrive.
To any job.
On your career.
In any relationship, really.
Yeah. And I love that idea of sunshining failures.
Oh, yeah. It's so important.
Like not being afraid to talk about your mistakes.
Yeah, because everyone makes mistakes.
Everyone makes mistakes.
It's how you learn and grow.
Yeah. And if you can create a culture where it's okay to fail.
Or it's safe to fail.
Then people are going to be more likely to take risks.
Yeah. And that's where the real innovation happens.
Exactly.
When you're not afraid to try new things.
Yeah. And even if those things don't work out, you can learn from them.
And you can apply those lessons.
Yeah.
To your next endeavor.
To your next project.
To your next relationship.
Yeah, I'm really struck by how much emphasis they put on context, not control.
It's a powerful concept.
It's like they're saying, we trust you to make the right decisions, but here's the information you need.
Here's the big picture.
To make those decisions. Now go out there and do your best work.
Yeah, and I think that's a really empowering message.
It is.
For employees.
It is.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into no rules rules, I'm just left with this feeling of like possibility.
Like anything is possible if you have the right people, the right culture.
And you're willing to embrace
a little bit of chaos.
A little bit of chaos.
A little bit of uncertainty.
And a lot of freedom.
And a lot of freedom.
And a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance.
It is.
But when it works, it really works.
It can lead to some amazing things, to extraordinary results.
All right, well, that's our deep dive.
That's it for No Rules Rules.
Into No Rules Rules. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening.
And we'll see you next time.
For another deep dive.